G'day, mate, and welcome to this Down Under special of Pinfalls and Passports. For those of you who don't already know, this is a podcast for members of the WWE Travel Community Discord and for people just like you, people who love the sport of professional wrestling, to keep us entertained and engaged during the lead up to WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas. Now, if you're not a member of the WWE Community Travel Discord, come join one of the fastest growing travel communities online. You can find the Discord invite link here in the podcast bio. And if you want to follow us on Instagram, it's at Pinfalls and Passports. And don't forget to follow or subscribe to this podcast to keep up to date with everything going on in wrestling in the run up to Vegas Mania 2.0 and the WWE Travel Community Discord. Now, my name's Daddy Dom. I'm recording here today's special bonus episode in Sydney, Australia. Well, actually, a little bit of a lie. I recorded this 2 weeks ago due to a little mishap of me leaving my MacBook on the plane. It took me a couple of weeks to get it back, but now I finally have. I've managed to edit down the episode and get this posted out for you today. But I thought while I was over in Australia, I thought it would be a really great opportunity to shoot the breeze with a couple of our most dedicated travellers from the Discord community to discuss things pro wrestling down under and really what it's like being a wrestling fan in Australia. And of course, we're going to discuss a little bit about the upcoming PLE, heading back to Perth in October, Crown Jewel. So, first, I just want to introduce a couple of our members from the WWE Travel Discord. If you are over there, you might recognise a couple of these names. If you are newer to the Discord or the podcast, and you probably haven't come across them before, first of all, welcome Cozy, coming all the way in from Tasmania. Cozy, how's it going, buddy?
Good. I just wrapped up some work and now have the pleasure of coming on and speaking to you guys, and it's happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Cozy, for joining us today. Absolutely great to have you on board. Had an absolute blast with you in Vegas for WrestleMania this year. I'm certainly looking to do the same this year, and great to have you on the show. Also joining me here, right next to me in the studio, is Cookies. Hi, Cookies. How are you?
I am great. Thank you. How are you?
I am good. Thank you.
I'm having the best time. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Good. No, well, thank you for having me. Cookies has been very kind to host me for the last 10 days since I've been here in Sydney, Australia, for my first ever visit to Australia. So, yeah, I'm having an absolute blast here doing all the Australian things, meeting kangaroos, meeting koalas, eating Tim Tams. What else you do here, guys? Fill me in.
Vegemite.
Vegemite. Ah, right. Yeah. That's your version of Marmite. Is that right, Cozy?
Yes, I actually don't know if it's the same. I think it might be the same thing.
I tried to explain to him that's actually offensive, but he didn't listen.
It's offensive. Is it culturally appropriating your sandwich spread now? Okay. Excellent. Great start. Yeah, I've got to be honest. I've seen your Vegemite. It looks very similar to something we have in the UK called Marmite. And the slogan is you either love it or you hate it. And I fucking hate it. So I will not be going anywhere near that kangaroo yeast infection you call a sandwich spread Vegemite. Thank you very much.
But you did try sausage sizzle at Bunnings, which is, that's a good start.
Yeah, I did. Another Australia must do, I understand. So yeah, I have to say that was pretty good. A sausage sizzle at the local garden centre on Sunday morning. Any non-Australians here who hasn't experienced this fine cuisine, it's a slice of bread with a sausage on it and some onion. And that's it.
Listen, it is flavored.
Choice of sauce.
Yes, and the sauce is free, the onion is free, and more importantly, it comes seasoned with the flavor of Ghosts of Sausages Past, because they always use the same barbecues, and that is why they taste so good.
Right. Well, to be fair, it was very, very enjoyable. I did like my sausage sizzle. So now I feel I'm a true Aussie now, and we'll certainly be back again in the future, I'm sure. So to cut things off today, we're gonna chat through. I want to hear you got your guys' stories about pro wrestling in Australia, what's sort of been happening over the last couple of years, especially with the sort of influx of WWE events that you guys have been getting, certainly from a sort of PLE perspective, and what sort of driven that, what sort of changed the sort of landscape, what does the landscape of pro wrestling sort of look like in Australia these days? We'll have a little chat about Elimination Chamber as well. I don't know if you guys went at all, and then we'll also sort of have a little chat hopefully about the upcoming Crown Jewel and what we can sort of expect sort of heading sort of into that show in Perth. But Cozy, tell me, what got you into sort of wrestling travel? What was your sort of first WWE event?
I can't say it was a huge trip. There was a long time ago, they used to come here for the house shows, I think every year. I mean, I used to see ads for it on TV all the time. And being a young tacker, I would have been 12 when I was finally taken with my father for the very first time all the way to Melbourne, which is a bit of a trip from Tasmania. It's not a cheap trip, that's for sure. You got to fly over. And from there, I've just always wanted to go back. But even as a young fella, I sort of understood that flying all the way over there for these house shows kind of wasn't bang for your buck, maybe once to see it once. And from there, I was hungry for any sort of pay-per-view PLE going forward. So eventually that came with Super Showdown 2018, and that was the start. It wasn't the greatest show, but it was definitely, it felt more meaningful being a televised event. And then, I've been hungry ever since, but we didn't get much for 6 years after that. So.
No. Yeah, I remember that Super Showdown show, but that was obviously before the time of sort of Rhea Ripley. I mean, Rhea Ripley's around. I think she's probably still on the sort of NXT UK sort of scene. I'm guessing around that time. If that,
I don't know if she had made it to NXT.
Maybe not.
Even NXT UK at that point.
No,
I can't recall.
Who did you?
The big attraction for then was Buddy Murphy on the show.
Yeah, Rhea's better half.
The
Yeah,
cruiserweight title. Yeah,
the world's luckiest man. Yeah.
I tried to sell out the MCG on the Undertaker versus Triple H, which obviously didn't work as well as you'd expect. I guess a lot of fans that's what's the whole thing, isn't it? Drawing as many people as you can with these people, stars that people know from the past.
Yeah.
I think it drew 70,000, which is,
Wow.
I guess, little for the MCG. And there's a lot of empty seats up top. But
Yeah. 70,000 though, not bad for a.
One day they'll return there. You never know.
Yeah, not bad for a wrestling crowd. What about you, Cookies? What was your sort of first WWE experience?
Cool. So I'm a little bit older than Cozy. So my first experience, I believe, was around 2003 or 2004. It would have been in Sydney. It was one of those house shows that Cozy mentioned. If I remember correctly, the first show that was around in my memory would have been the Global Warming Tour, but that was in Melbourne, and I did not go to that. I couldn't, I was a broke teenager, so I couldn't afford to, but I did manage to go to the Sydney show within a few years, had a really, really good time. I have very few memories from it, but I will say that it whet my appetite. It made me want to see more. It made me want to see larger shows. It made me want to potentially go to the US and see pay-per-views as they were back then. It did take a long time before I managed to do that, though, because, the money was, it's quite a lot to be able to go and do that.
Sure. So what was your first WrestleMania?
2018. It was WrestleMania 34. My friend and I had decided that we were going to go. I was in the middle of a huge bout of travel because I'd quit my job and I'd sold my home and decided to just, fly around the world for a year and a half and do all the things. And I actually decided to finish up that huge trip with WrestleMania. And my friend decided to come with me on that particular part of the trip. It was about 10 or 11 days before her birthday. So we decided we were going to go to WrestleMania, which was in New Orleans. And then we were going to meet up in Las Vegas about a week later for her birthday. And it was an amazing trip.
Amazing. Cozy, I know because you went to Philly, didn't you? You went to Philly and you went to Vegas, obviously.
Correct.
Were those your first Manias for you, or? I
did actually, was fortunate to go to 39.
Ah, cool.
So I've completed the 3 peaks. I'm not sure if we'll go for 4. I don't think so at this point, but you never know.
With
39, my dad accompanied me to that one. So we traveled halfway across the world together all the way to LA, and incredible experience.
Yeah.
I think that's probably my favorite one as an overall experience. I mean, nothing can beat the end of 40's main event, obviously. But yeah, 39 and mixed in with like all the tourism you can do in LA. If it's your first time seeing everything as well, you know.
Yeah.
You can see how bad Hollywood is and explore Universal, Disneyland, and everything else you see from movies and games in LA. So
Yeah.
there was a lot to do.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the wrestling trip, I'll say.
Cool. No, there is something special, isn't there, about your first ever WrestleMania. For me, it was 40. That wasn't my first WWE overseas show. I'd been to SummerSlam a few years ago when it was in Nashville, but that was on my 40 was my first WrestleMania. And like, I know it was a good WrestleMania anyway, so it's going to be a pretty tough one to sort of beat sort of in the future. But yeah, I still think, that first WrestleMania experience when you're sort of in that arena for the first time, you've got that, it's nothing's ever going to sort of beat that, is it? Nothing's going to beat that, those sort of memories. Awesome. Tell us, when did you join the Discord then, Cozy? You've been here for quite a while, haven't you? Were you one of the...
Yeah, I think it was around December 2023, I want to say. It was early on. It was a few months before WrestleMania 40.
Yeah.
And I sort of poked my head in and out here and there, and didn't say much. And then eventually, as things got closer, I guess people get more. It was my first big alone trip as well, so that's when I was really, I won't say relying on others, obviously, but just trying to maybe build some friends and make the experience more enjoyable. Not that you can't have fun on your own, but obviously if you can make some friends whilst you're at it, which thankfully I have, it's magical.
Absolutely. And now, Cookies as well, you're a little bit later to the Discord. You weren't around. You obviously didn't go to 40. You joined the community sort of before Vegas. Sort of, how do you feel being part of the sort of Discord community has sort of changed the way that you experience events?
To be honest, I feel like I've been in the server longer than I have, and I think people think I've been in the server longer than I have. I did go back and check, and I think I joined in September. So I pretty much right after the announcement was made for Vegas, and I realized, I mentioned before that my friend and I went to 34, and her birthday was not long after. I realized that it was in Vegas on her birthday, and I sent her a message and I said, hey, we got her. This is, we've got to run it back. We've got to do this again. And as soon as we decided we were doing it, I started searching some things online, and that's when I found the server. I had expected at the time to join the server and just get some ideas of things that maybe some people have done recently, because it had been quite a few years since my last WrestleMania. And I wasn't sure how much had changed, especially since COVID, of course. So I was just curious about what kind of ideas and suggestions people had. And then, honestly, I just found this amazing community with amazing people. I made so many friends. I think that one of the best things about the server is that if you're active and you're vocal, you feel like you basically join an amazing community of people. So that really is what changed for me. I was already looking forward to WrestleMania in Vegas, but then I was just looking forward to meeting all these people and having all this fun with people that I'd been speaking to for months. I hadn't met any of them in person, and it was just the best experience.
Amazing. Life-changing stuff.
Yes, exactly. Life-changing.
And Cozy, I absolutely loved meeting you in Vegas. You are one of the funniest guys that I got to hang out with. Honestly, if anybody sort of listening to this is about Cozy, or you guys are fortunate enough to bump into Cozy at a WWE PLE event further down the line, this guy is the drunkest guy I have ever met, but at the same time, also the nicest drunk person that you could ever wish to meet. And this is coming from somebody that doesn't drink. I don't drink alcohol myself. I haven't quite a few years now. So sometimes really, really, really drunk people can kind of get on my tits. But Cozy was definitely not like that. Honestly, one of the nicest guys. So much fun. Cozy, you got any funny in-person sort of moments that you had with anybody on the server? Anything that comes to mind that you want to mention?
I can't think of much. I feel like I didn't see heaps of people in Philly. I think we sort of met up at Tailgate, and that was kind of it. I can't think of anything there, but the first thing that comes to mind, whether it's a you've got to be there sort of moment or not, I don't know. It was me. It might have been Kevin, Vince Russo, Zane, Martin might have been there as well after NXT this year on the first night of WrestleMania. We were just looking for some food before the event, before we made our way over to Allegiant Stadium. And it was Vince who got bumped into by one of the girls, right? The girls that they want to take some photos with you. And he had the CM Punk, what are they called? The tape. His hands taped up like Punk. He had the X's on them and all that. And one of the girls just goes, "What did you do to your hands?" Bust. we all hissed ourselves laughing just because it was like, I completely respect what they do. If people want to take photos with them and hustle, that's on them. In my eyes. But if you're hustling all day, every day on the Las Vegas Strip, how are you not aware, at least somewhat, of what's going on? CM Punk, one of the biggest guys on the show that weekend in the main event. It was very. That's the first thing I can think that comes to mind.
Completely overhead, then. Yeah. Brilliant, fantastic. So what I want to have a little chat about with you guys is I want to really get an understanding, get the audience to get a feeling of sort of what it's like to be a wrestling fan in Australia, because, you know, you guys have to travel an awful long way in order to attend pretty much any PLE that isn't in Australia. And that's obviously, you only had what, 2 or 3 in the last sort of 7 or 8 years. So 2. So yeah. If you want to go and see a proper WWE event, you know, WrestleMania is obviously the main one, but there's others. But you guys have got to, I imagine, put a lot of planning in place. You've got to book a lot of time off work, and you've got to spend a hell of a lot of money in order to sort of get there as well. What is it like being a wrestling fan in Australia? Is it kind of a really popular thing over here, being a WWE fan?
I think the popularity's grown a lot over the last few years. I mean, I think it has overall with wrestling in general. But, you know, I mean, show times, depending on where you are in Australia, of course, aren't horrible. We wake up, my show's 9 or 10 a.m. Sometimes if the clocks align, they can start at 12. So they usually, you know, that's a Saturday or a Sunday most of the time for SmackDown and the PLE. Raw, for a lot of people, I think a lot of Australian fans miss out on Raw because it's always on a Tuesday. Same with the AEW, if you watch that as well.
Yeah.
They're always, you know, the morning of, it's a work day. So for me, a lot of the time, I just check Twitter. I don't really bother watching because I come home and I got to do other things as well. What feels different now? I can't say anything really feels super different, other than I feel like we're getting a lot more attention than we ever have before. You know, for example, AEW came earlier this year and have already committed to coming back next year. Obviously, we're getting Crown Jewel at the end of the year. We got Elimination Chamber at the start of last year. I think at one point we had a TNA show. It might have been in 2024 in Wagga Wagga, of all places. I don't know what that was all about, but it feels like we're getting noticed a lot more, and companies willing to take the big trip to get the product out there and connect with the Australian audience.
So let's just wind the clock back a bit, because obviously Elimination Chamber 2024, that was the first big PLE that you guys had a number of years. Is that right?
I believe so.
That was like the
showdown, even a big one.
So was that like the turning point for WWE, or do you feel that the turning point had come sort of before then with WWE in Australia, and that's why they did the PLE here? Was that
before that?
Before.
I would say so. Okay, so for a bit of context, and this is showing my age a little bit. Back when I first started watching wrestling, it was actually really difficult to watch wrestling. You had to have pay TV if you had any hope of seeing it. Otherwise, you were watching weekly recaps that were months and months behind. It was unheard of for WWE to visit Australia because it's quite far, it's quite expensive. And at that time, it was a joke for others to basically meet somebody who liked wrestling. It was very much something that people would give you hell over. But then kind of expose themselves a little bit by saying, oh, but it looked so fake last night, that kind of thing. But I would say that in the last, probably the last 15 years, things have turned around quite a bit. And especially when WWE Network first came out, that made a huge difference because it was so much more accessible. I would say that the rise of streaming pay TV made it more accessible as well. Previously, pay TV was quite expensive. It was out of reach for a lot of people. But once they started releasing cheaper versions in streaming, and not just with WWE Network, but with originally Foxtel was the main provider of WWE. And then they started releasing a cheaper version to stream. That made it more accessible. And just in general, once that was much more available, and they did have a few shows in Sydney, in Melbourne, that I think was really the turning point. Yeah. The WWE Network to me was the biggest turning point
Amazing. And how do you think, has anything changed with sort of local promotions? Has there been a sort of upsurge in sort of local promotions and local shows, in sort of more sort of perhaps indie wrestlers wanting to come and sort of showcase themselves sort of in Australia? Is that more viable now? What's the mood on the ground like around sort of indie wrestling scene in Australia?
I think potentially Cookies might be better to answer this. I've never been to an Australian indie show.
Okay.
Wow.
I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon, but what I can say is we have a promotion that's mainly based where I'm from in Tasmania, TCW, Tasmanian Championship Wrestling. I have seen over the last couple of years that get a lot more ads on my social media feed for that. Now, and I can only put that down to it's becoming more popular again. But that's about all I can share. I've never been to an indie show in Australia.
So, well, Cookies, I know that you've attended some independent wrestling shows here in Australia. Why don't you give us a little background on that?
Okay. All right. So it's been quite a few years. Let me start there. But back when I was potentially probably too young to be in these venues, I was managing a tag team in a local indie federation. To give a bit of context, in Sydney, once upon a time, there were really two main promotions. One was AWF and the other was IWA. I believe IWA came first, but many years ago, I was dating a guy that was wrestling in AWF, and many of the wrestlers got a little bit fed up with the decisions made in AWF, let's say, and decided to mass abandon the federation and create something new. And that was called UWA. Now, being that I was there at the time and I was around, I ended up managing a tag team, one of whom was the guy I was dating. And he actually ended up being the first UWA champion. And then my tag team, from memory, became one of the first tag team champions. It was an amazing time. It was quite a long time ago, and I don't know that UWA is around much anymore, but it was kind of founded on the idea of something of a group of people making decisions rather than an individual. And that, I think, was the right way to go at the time. It was something that also gave rise, I think, to one of the newer, well, not newer, but one of the companies that's around now that's still around, when some of them disagreed with some things that were happening in UWA, and they formulated this company called PWA, which is quite popular now. It's still very active, especially in Sydney. And I believe that quite a few of the current stars from Australia in WWE had some time in PWA. And actually, some of them also spent some time in IWA, which was that original federation that I mentioned. In fact, just probably even 6 months or a year before I first saw him on NXT, Grayson Waller was doing shows 25 minutes down the road for IWA. So yeah, it was crazy to one day just see him on my screen. I think, oh, I just saw that guy just down the street. It has changed a lot in the last, I'm not going to say how many years, but one thing that I think has always been the case with Australian wrestling is that the people involved are there out of passion. They're not there out of anything else. Quite a long time ago, you'd be lucky to get 20 people in the crowd, and the people on the show were still absolutely giving it everything that they had. So it's always been about passion here. You couldn't possibly do it for any other reason.
Yeah, fair. And I think ultimately as well, Australian wrestling is obviously in a good place, isn't it, at the moment?
Yes.
And the main reason you can say that, and the main reason why I'm guessing the likes of WWE want to come here, is that they've got real Australian stars for not necessarily the first time, but pretty much the first time in a long time anyway. There's some really, really good Australian wrestlers out there that are really making sort of waves both in WWE and AEW and other promotions as well. Let's talk a little bit about that. How proud are you guys of Rhea Ripley's success? And do you feel like she's perhaps inspired a new sort of wave of fandom to WWE or wrestling itself?
Absolutely. She's incredible. She really stepped up. I think that who she was in Australia, and I wasn't fortunate enough to go and see her wrestle in Australia, but the stark difference that you see between who she was when she was first on NXT and who she is today is unbelievable. And I think that one of the things that everyone appreciates the most about her is how real to herself she seems today. She seems genuine, and she seems like she's really there because this is who she is. This is who she's always wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And she just does an amazing job of projecting that.
What about you, Cozy? Any other stars in particular that sort of stick out for you that you feel have sort of helped sort of move the needle for Australian wrestling recently?
I would love to say Grayson Waller, but he just doesn't get used anymore. I was a big fan of him around NXT, but it just sort of feels like he's sort of a side character at the moment, but it's still representation nonetheless.
Yeah.
I can't say at the start of Toni Storm's recent run that I was a fan, but from what I've seen lately, I've really, really enjoyed. Now, I believe she might be originally a New Zealand girl, but tomatoes, right? Like,
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned, obviously, Toni Storm, who we know obviously was with WWE, but is now sort of spearheading, really, the women's division over in AEW. Okay, maybe not the strongest women's division out of the two main companies, but it is a women's division with some big names all the same. And Toni Storm has really, another one who has really transported her character and made it her own. And her work that she has done on AEW, I think, is absolutely incredible. And what she's done to sort of pick herself up off the ground after being sort of released by WWE, quite surprisingly, I thought, because I thought she was a major talent for the future for WWE. I was shocked that they sort of let her go. And then just to turn around her career, what she's done in AEW with that new character that she developed is, and that might not have worked, you know, it was a gamble, wasn't it? I think the Timeless Toni Storm gimmick had to be a sort of huge gamble, but she is just so good at it and has got it over so well, you know. But AEW, you mentioned, obviously, they were here again. They've said they're coming next year. You know, they've got a couple of sort of decent Australian wrestlers, but some really good upcoming ones as well. What are our thoughts on Kyle Fletcher? Because for me, he is the guy that is the real sort of next big wrestling star, whether it's WWE or AEW, you know, on the wrestling landscape. Kyle Fletcher is a guy for me. If you guys haven't seen Kyle Fletcher on AEW, he's one half of the tag team that was Aussie Open, who were the New Japan champions for quite a while. They were AEW champions for quite a while as well. But Kyle has kind of gone out and on this solo run now, is working with Don Callis and is doing some phenomenal work. Who do you think? Do you think he's the next big guy to come through for the Australian wrestling scene? Do you think he's the next big one, or is there anyone else that I'm kind of missing out that you guys think could be the next big star?
The other one that comes to mind is well, it's time will tell, with Bronson Reed, obviously only very recently been pushed, I guess, into the main event scene.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing they're going to have a big match, him and Bron Breakker versus Roman and Park. No, not Park.
LA Knight?
No. LA Knight.
Could be any of them, couldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of a...
They're all messing with them at the moment, aren't they? Yeah. There's...
And of course, Bronson's big Survivor Series match as well was a big deal. And I remember being, I guess, proud to my own right at the time when he got inserted into that match.
Absolutely, and that was you know, that was huge for him to not just be in that match. And I really felt that was going to be his big sort of breakout performance. In a way, it was, but the problem is he got injured in the match. We didn't see him for another few months, which sort of halted, I suppose, that push a little bit. But I think we've seen now that he's got back into the sort of main event scene, if you like, really working with Heyman and Seth and Bron Breakker, and really looks like he's going to sort of make some waves. Certainly exciting times. Bronson Reed really does look like a future sort of superstar or megastar in the making. Did you go to Elimination Chamber, by the way, Cozy? Did you attend?
I did.
You did.
Me and a few of my friends attended.
Amazing. Any standout sort of moments that from attending that or watching?
I don't think it was a major show, as in like as much as what you'd expect. I mean, if you look at Elimination Chamber 2025, with one of the biggest moments ever, with John Cena's heel turn, nothing quite like that stood out at least being in the crowd. I think the biggest thing I remember is Drew McIntyre's pyro. There was a hell of a lot of pyro and fireworks overall across all that show, more than was at WrestleMania later that year in Philly.
Yeah.
I feel like it was more, and there was only 4 matches on the card for this big stadium and probably a 4-hour show. But I can't think of any huge standout moments. I don't think it was an incredible show by any means compared to, I guess, some of the others we've seen. But that's all about them building, and a lot of injuries as well affected that show. I believe Seth, for whatever reason, Cody didn't wrestle, Punk was out as well. So they definitely made do with what they could. They could have had The Rock turn up, but he didn't. I think it was just it was just enjoyable to have another show back in Australia after 6 years or whatever it had been since our last pay-per-view. Enjoyed it with my friends for the first time.
Amazing. Fantastic. And we know obviously they're coming back in October, I think it is, isn't it? For you're getting Crown Jewel for whatever reason. Do we think that WWE are going to make Australia a regular stop now for PLEs? Is this going to be an annual thing? Could it be more than that? What do you think moving forward? Do you think it's on the regular?
I don't want to be too cynical. I think that it will be regular as long as the cities are willing to bid. That's how I see it. I think at the moment Perth is high on the enjoyment of Elimination Chamber and hoping to see something similar for Crown Jewel. I will reserve judgment as to whether or not that happens, but I do think that one of the reasons that Elimination Chamber was so successful is because it is one of the major PLEs.
Yeah.
My personal feeling, this might be controversial, is that don't give us a recycled PLE like they've kind of done like Crown Jewel. What?
And it gives you that kind of feeling, is this just, a bit like the Saudi shows that we see? We kind of see these kind of recycled sort of things. Okay, it's a PLE, but it's a PLE for the sake of having a sort of PLE. And the fact it's in Perth again kind of gives it that kind of feeling that, well, if Perth, and I'm guessing, slightly educated guess, but from what I understand is Perth generally at the moment has a lot of money to spend on bringing in sort of big name acts, whether that's music, whether that's sporting events. I know they've done a deal obviously to get UFC, so I guess that deal included these WWE sort of shows as well. I guess that means they're putting up quite a bit of money to bring these guys over. Do we still think that WWE is still doing this PLE Crown Jewel this year? If it wasn't for Perth putting up some money up front, do we think that maybe they would have considered going to Sydney or Melbourne, or do we think that they might not have come at all? What do you reckon? And obviously we're just speculating.
Whoever pays the bill.
Yeah.
Which at the moment, I mean, as we mentioned, Perth and the Western Australia government have a lot of money to throw around for events, sporting events, international events, combat sports.
Yeah.
And obviously you just mentioned, I don't know if it was announced today or just recently, the UFC in September, I think. But we already knew they were coming relatively soon.
Yeah.
I think to me, I guess the big indicator that maybe this may be more of a reoccurring thing is that we're getting Raw and SmackDown this time. They could have quite easily gone, hey, Crown Jewel, it's kind of a big show across the other side of the world. Let's chuck it in the stadium again. But I guess time will tell if it's successful for the economy. I think it's one of the big things, isn't it? And does it interest new travelers as well? I mean, that's what a lot of these events are about, is make the city look good whilst you're at it, and maybe people might want to visit.
Absolutely. So, and Perth being the most isolated city on earth in terms of how far it is to get to the next city.
Major city, I guess.
It's
the capital of Western Australia.
I'm
sure there's
more
isolated cities that you've never heard of.
They're very much doing their best to drive tourism, not just from outside of Australia, but within Australia. The way that these events are publicized is definitely trying to get people more interested in visiting Perth, which, makes a lot of sense. As you mentioned, Cozy, having Raw and SmackDown is a good indicator that, if nothing else, they are happy with the success of Elimination Chamber last year. I would actually be surprised. I was surprised that they didn't do that for Elimination Chamber, solely for the fact that it's such a long flight. It's so far to come to set up for one show that I was quite surprised they didn't do that before. So maybe what they're doing now is because of the success, or maybe because it's just more practical.
more practical, maybe just another crack at it to see what sort of numbers
Possibly.
they can generate this time in a smaller venue, of course, as well. It's all 3 shows in small venue versus 1 show in big venue.
Yeah, because they didn't quite sell out Elimination Chamber in the stadium, did they? Is that right?
No,
It
I
was,
think from memory, it might have been around 40 to 50.
yeah. I remember
Just
there
off
was
the top
quite a
of my
few
head.
sort of tickets. Are you planning on going to Crown Jewel, Cody, or are you thinking about it?
I had tickets and
You have
flights
tickets?
to Crown Jewel. All
Amazing.
sorted.
Amazing. So what were the ticket prices like for this? Obviously, we know that when WWE does these kind of small events in the arenas, I know as a UK fan, you know, how much it was, you know, the Clash in Scotland last year, stupid prices. Cheapest ticket was like £500. What were the ticket prices like for Crown Jewel this year in comparison to the stadium show at Elimination Chamber?
I think it was really, really good. Surprisingly, it surprised me, certainly. I don't think they were giving out tickets for free, obviously, but they were definitely a lot better than I expected. So as of right now, at least for general ticket sales, excluding on location and all the other VIP experience passes you can buy, the 3-day pass is sold out, and that's all that's gone on sale. There is no individual sales as of yet. So we yet to see what those sort of prices can be like. Do they drive up all of a sudden because of the success of the 3-day combo?
Yeah.
But I managed to snag tickets sort of like mid-tier seating for all 3 shows for 717 Australian dollars, or roughly there.
That's not bad, is it?
Just shy of $500.
Not bad at all.
So very, very good. So I do question when these single events do go on sale, are they suddenly triple what they were worth for the combo?
Yeah.
But from what I've seen, I was very impressed with the pricing.
That sounds pretty good to me. And do we think we get an Aussie headliner at Crown Jewel this time?
You'd assume that they're doing the Crown Jewel Championships again. I think that's confirmed that they're doing that again, unfortunately. So I guess it all sort of depends on how badly do people want to see Rhea Ripley versus Tiffany Stratton, for example, if that's possible, if Rhea Ripley is the champion heading in.
Oh, yeah. No, it's
I don't think there's any chance of her winning the championship there because, of course, the Crown Jewel title is on the line. So it all depends on how big they can, if say, Cody versus Seth, potential, not anymore. Oh, no. Cody versus Punk also.
Yeah.
If Cody versus Punk is a potential and Ripley versus Stratton is potential, then no.
So how does it? So hold on. So that you're saying they're doing the Crown Jewel title again? Is that right? Have they confirmed that? So
I believe so.
From what I understood, then the Saudis were keeping the Crown Jewel sort of belt from last time to go on display in their museum in Riyadh. So one of the Aussies got cooked up for the Crown Jewel title. Will it be something maybe that the wrestlers might be able to actually take home? Or do we think they've got sort of something else in mind?
Oh, personalized jar of Vegemite. What else?
Yeah. I don't know. I reckon they've sort of gone back on their word. As these belts were only going to be in Saudi, only ever claimed, defended, won, whatever you want to say in Saudi. And all of a sudden, this event's happening in Australia. I don't know if it's...
I think maybe they'll just lend it to you guys for the show and then just take it straight back to Riyadh. Yeah.
Not having a Crown Jewel in Saudi this year.
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know if Saudi have their own fingers in this event still somehow. I'm not sure.
Who knows?
You'd assume if the belts are coming out of the museum, which I'm going to guess they are.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we're going to see Riyadh season written all over the bottom of the ring in the sponsors.
5 years' time, they'll be saying the show was in Saudi Arabia.
So let's just talk again. Just briefly, tell me about Aussie fans. What's it like? What are Aussie crowds like? Have you guys got your own sort of chance? Obviously, we know when we've seen the international PLAs go out recently. We already knew that the UK crowds are great. We've seen that, but recently we've seen the French crowds, we've seen the Italian crowds, we've seen the Puerto Rico crowds. Incredible crowds anytime they go to an international location outside of the US or Canada for these shows. Now, I know the Aussies are very, very competitive, very, very competitive people. Do you guys feel that you need to sort of take that on yourselves? And is that something you aim to sort of beat? You want to be the best crowd?
I would not say that's a conscious choice.
No?
I would say that Australians have a tendency to get rowdy and excited all on their own. I don't actually know what rating this podcast is, so I don't know if I can say some of the things they're probably going to say.
This is an explicit podcast, so you're more than welcome to say what you want.
I mean, my experience, even in small crowds, is that even the youngest children know words you don't expect them to know.
I mean, I've learned that just spending a week here. So, yeah.
So certainly a lot of different chants that would contain the word wanker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot, one of the more common ones that I think I've experienced in an Australian crowd. I think it's a big deal with this event being in a smaller arena. I think in the past, our televised events, which has only really been a couple, have been mainly in open air stadiums.
Yeah.
So whenever I've heard someone talk about a crowd, oh, the crowd sucked, it was washed out, it was, and I'm there, I'm like, whoa.
It's been a very environmental dependent. Yeah.
So with this event being, I guess, it feels like a big deal despite it being crown jewel. And finally, a pay-per-view on 3 televised events in a smaller closed roof. Well, the roof can open. I don't think it will. Closed venue, I think, will capture the sound a lot more. So we'll see if we can actually walk the talk.
Great point. No, I never actually thought of that. You're right. Obviously you've had all the shows you've had recently have been stadium shows. We've not seen an indoor arena show. So yeah, really, really excited to hear what the Aussie fans have in store for us in October. I wonder how many chants I'll have to bleep out on Netflix. Yeah,
all of them.
Amazing.
All you'll hear the beeping, and then you'll hear
the. What about yourselves as Aussies? When you sort of go abroad and you go to international PLAs, has your accent or your energy ever gotten you over unexpectedly with the sort of WWE fan base or in the sort of cities that you've been over to or anything like that?
Not wrestling related, but I have had people treat me differently once I start speaking, which is really interesting. I was at a hockey game in Canada and I was in someone's way and they looked very, very angry. And then I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And then their whole demeanor changed. It was like the sun came out from behind some clouds and this big, burly, angry looking man suddenly started giggling and said, "That's okay."
What about you, Cozy? And you're quite a character anyway, sort of when you were overseas, or is it just a case that you don't remember anything that happened?
I remember a fair bit. I do just, it's tricky to remember. I think when you travel overseas, you sort of get very accustomed to people asking where you're from and, all those basic questions. Oh, I like your accent. But I don't think it's probably certainly helped me make some more friends along the way. Or maybe that's just my character and sometimes getting very excited at the wrestling shows. But
I'm sure it's a bit of both, Cozy. Absolutely. Amazing. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I tell you what, I've got a quick fire question before we finish. If you ever think of which Aussie wrestler, past or present, do you think deserves more global recognition? Cookies, I'll go to you first.
Grayson Waller.
Grayson Waller?
Yeah, look, I've seen him in a small show right in front of me, and he is hugely entertaining. He is one of the more fun heels to hate, and I genuinely think they should be doing more with him than they're doing right now.
Couldn't agree more. Cozy, what about yourself?
I think I alluded to it earlier, but I have the same opinion.
Yeah.
When Waller first broke in and got drafted all of a sudden after his NXT call-up, I said, he'll be a future world champion. I don't feel the same right now.
No. It does seem... I mean, they were doing when they had the Grayson Waller show going. You kind of got it, didn't you? You kind of thought this is his kind of platform to get up, and then ever since he sort of joined up with Theory, it's kind of all been a little bit sort of downhill, unfortunately, and it does seem to have come. But I'm sure, we've seen it before, haven't we? We've seen wrestlers go through this, sort of getting their feet under the door with WWE. He's still young. He's very athletic. He's certainly got charisma. He's very, very entertaining. I really do hope you guys are right. We're going to see a lot more from Grayson Waller in the future. On that note, I want to say thank you, Cozy, for coming on with us today. Absolutely great to chat and shoot the breeze with you. Thank you, Cookies, as well. It's been great having you guys on the show. And you guys have a great day. And thanks to everybody for listening.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys. Catch you soon.